excessive worry, hypochondria, my anxiety struggle. Today, we're going to get kind of personal, and I'm going to talk to you about some things that I've been dealing with over the last 4 or 5 weeks with some things that are kind of interesting. And if you guys have ever dealt with excessive worry or hypochondria, let me know in the box, let us know in the comments, because this is something that I think people don't talk about very much, and it's something that we can solve together. It's something that we need to understand that we're all in this boat together, and while you're sitting there in your world of excessive worry and hypochondria, someone else in the next seat is probably feeling the same thing. And I think that's why alcohol meetings and groups really help, because we understand that we're not the only person dealing with this. Now, about 5 weeks ago, or I'll backtrack. I'm going to backtrack 5 years ago, and then we'll come up to 5 weeks. About 5 years ago, when I moved here to Florida, it was my dream to move to Florida. This is the house I wanted to get. I was happy. I was ecstatic. We had been trying to move to Florida since before I got sober, over 3 years ago. We tried moving several times, but the cards just didn't play right, and because of the mortgage issues and the crises and the ups and downs of the housing market, it was very difficult to move. So 5 years ago, we finally moved, and about 6 months after that, I get a call from my dad, who I've been kind of, we've had a rocky relationship, but he's a good guy. Interesting stuff. And I get a call from him, and he says, hey, I just got diagnosed with stage 2 throat cancer. And so I was worried. You think anything with the C word is the end of the world. You think that's the end of the ropes. And so for the last 5 years, I've been watching him deal with this. It has progressively gotten pretty bad. Trouble eating, all kinds of stuff. Just a bad situation. And I noticed about 5 weeks ago, I started getting severe hypochondria. I started thinking everything that was in my mouth was cancer. Like, literally, I thought everything. I got a little thing at the roof of my mouth, and I'm like, wife, come look at this. I think it's something bad. And she's like, yeah, I get those like every week. Hey, everyone has those. And they got to get a sore over here. I'm like, wait a minute. This is it. I know this is it. And I'm talking, this isn't like, oh, gee, it might be something bad. Let me go about my day. This is like I'm literally spending 6 to 8 hours a day thinking about this, Googling the symptoms, which is the worst thing you could possibly do, because Google is not a doctor. Google's good, but it's not a doctor, and neither am I. I don't know anything about doctor stuff. And so I'm freaking myself out, and for 5 weeks I'm going crazy, which a lot of you guys know I'm trying to quit cigars, which I'm doing good. I'm having like that much of a cigar a day, and some days, yesterday, I didn't even have one. Pretty good. The reason I'm quitting cigars is not some altruistic reason like, hey, I want to do good. It's because I'm tired of freaking out about my health for 6 to 8 hours a day about things that aren't even real. And I even went to the dentist, and he checked some things out, which is an issue, but not the issue I thought it was. And I was freaking out. And I even get home, and I'm like, what does the dentist know? He only went to 25,000 years of school. I know more because I got Google. I mean, come on now. I can research this stuff. And it's very difficult. It's debilitating. The anxiety you get is the kind of anxiety that makes your heart stop, figuratively. Makes you worry. We went to a movie. Fantastic movie. If you guys have not seen the new Cruella movie, awesome movie. I spent half the movie thinking about whether I had a disorder or not. I went to the bathroom during the movie because I had a giant Diet Coke, which is probably not the greatest thing. And I had to talk myself out of looking at my mouth in the mirror, as if that would help, right? And what we realize is that anxiety and hypochondria are usually about irrational things. Is checking my mouth in the mirror going to do anything? Like, if I look at it enough, is it going to go away? And I found out that a lot of this is probably connected to things that I'm not dealing with my dad. Not ready to let go. Not ready to let that happen. And so we realize that excessive anxiety and excessive worry is something that cripples a lot of us, and it's something we don't talk about. And I think it's time that we start talking about it and open up the dialogue of, hey, we're all going through this. A lot of us do the same things. And this is the kind of thing where I don't know why it didn't take me to the bar like it should have. Like, it's the kind of thing where it's like, if that was something that would make me relapse, that's probably it. And so I looked at it, and I'm trying to reverse engineer what I did to understand what's going on. And some of the things I did, I listened to my talks about worry from Alan Watts. I convince myself of things about, hey, I either have stage 19 cancer because I think everything in my mouth has it, or I'm fine, right? So either way, there's nothing I could do. And I really, really looked at the psychology behind the Serenity Prayer of accept the things I can't change. There's certain things I can't change, right? There's certain things I can. The doctor told me a year ago, your cholesterol's too high, and he said eat an apple every night. So I do that, and I try to eat right, and I try to watch the fast food and the junk, and I try to cook differently. But as far as other things, there's certain things I can't control. And when we look at the base of worry, we need to understand that a lot of the things that we worry about are worrying about a cycle. It's a cycle of worry. It goes around. Now, should I go to the doctor if I'm worried about something? Of course I should. Of course. But is that loop going to help? No, it's probably going to make things worse. So we need to understand that. And I think opening this dialogue and understanding what's going on and understanding how our minds work and understanding that my thoughts don't own me. I don't even own them. They're just going by. And I needed to look at something because usually when you have excessive worry or hypochondria, it leads back to something. And I started researching certain things, and I've been researching this for years, about anxiety and worry. And actually, one of the interesting things I found out is hypochondria is crazy prevalent among first-year med students. Once they start learning about these disorders, they're like, well, I got that. My foot looks like that. I think I have this. And all this stuff comes from knowledge. Like 20 years ago, 50 years ago, 500 years ago, before they knew what these disorders were, nobody worried about them because they didn't know what they were. They were like, old John went out back and now he's not here anymore, right? Or old whatever. And that's what happened. And so the knowledge, I have to look at the fact that the only reason I'm worrying about this is because of the knowledge of my dad. And we have to understand what's going on. So I think this is a good dialogue to bring up with anxiety and the struggle and how debilitating it can be and how it could affect your work, your relationships, and everything. So let's open up the dialogue. Let's hear from you guys. Terry, what are your thoughts on this stuff?
You know, in some of our past YouTubes, we've talked about anxiety. We've actually talked about it quite a bit. And I used to say that, I didn't experience much anxiety through my drinking, and since then I'm not a real anxious guy. But looking back on it and realizing what anxiety really is, which is fear. Yeah, I experienced a lot of anxiety. Did I experience it to an extreme? Well, here and there, but not too bad. But anxiety has been a part of my life. I think anxiety is a part of many people's lives. When I was drinking, the anxiety took the form of, similar to what Megan said. She said I used to Google symptoms in active addiction. I Googled everything. Am I an alcoholic? Took all those little self-quizzes and stuff like that. And, I Googled the BAC calculator, which is blood alcohol content calculator, to figure out if I was too drunk to do whatever. Did it wear off yet? Or things like that. And that was just my fear of things. And it was, it was because of my drinking. I also was fearful that people would find out that I was an alcoholic, and then they'd make me quit. I was afraid of so many things. And since sobriety, I don't fear those things as much anymore. Well, obviously I don't fear the fact that the blood alcohol content, because I'm not drinking. But I still do have I believe a healthy fear of what's it gonna take for me to drink again. I don't know. So I try to do everything I possibly can to stay sober. But there's other fears in life, of course. There's financial fears. There's fears of loved ones. I just lost a very close person in sobriety yesterday, and it was really sad. And I might get into that a little bit later. But the anxiety of these things, especially with the person that passed away. Knowing that he might not make it, and he didn't. That was pretty stressful for a little while there. And now it's the anxiety of what's his wife gonna do, and I'm sure she's going through extreme anxiety. It can be difficult, but there's ways to work through the anxiety and to at least limit it. And some of the tools I use is, you guys have all heard one day at a time, and it's kind of used a lot. And really, the one day at a time is a very useful tool as far as I can take care of certain things today that may help my situation that I'm anxious about. And what can I do today? So I step back and look at the situation and what can I do today? Well, for my friend that passed away, I can reach out to his wife and say, hey, is there anything you need? I have a pickup truck. You need me to move anything or whatever? Do you need me to cook you a meal? I'm a chef. I can reach out and help in that situation. And just little things that I can do, or financial situations, I can take some steps towards, financial freedom, or just taking care of bills. What do I need to do? Do I need to balance my checkbook? Do I need to pay a little bit more on a credit card? Whatever, things like that. Just little steps working in the right direction, and that helps with the anxiety, but still that fear is still there. So understanding what I can do today really helps, and then taking care of these little things on a daily basis. It's the little actions that add up to a big result, and that's what I found in my sobriety. Is that right there? That helps immensely for me to move forward and stay out of those anxious situations. Even with legal problems, I've had legal problems, and what do you need to do in a legal situation? Well, maybe you need to get a lawyer or whatever. And legal situations can sometimes just take forever, and you're just dreading that day of the big court date or whatever it is that you're dreading. And just taking those small steps and understanding that whatever's going to happen is going to happen, and then I'm going to deal with it after that. And in the same way, taking care of little things one at a time. And that seems to help me a lot.
Absolutely. And I see a lot of people in the comments talking about anxiety coming up after certain periods of sobriety. And I think it's important to realize, like, this thing that hit me recently, I've been sober 7 years. And this is probably the worst cycle of anxiety I've had in 7 years. And I need to understand where it comes from. And we also need to watch out for the stack effect, because a stack effect can be crazy. And we need to understand when it's time to reach out for help, when it's time to talk to someone. Terry lost a friend. There could be something else that stacks on top of it, maybe a financial thing, or whether, therapy or whatever it is that goes on. And I noticed with me, over the last 2 years, my wife and I have been dealing with things because, when you get married young and you're together 20 years, you don't know what you're doing, and you learn things, and you're like, wow, okay, yeah, that's been bothering me, and I drank through it, and now I ignored it to stay sober, and now we got to talk about it. And that's stacking on top of the dad stuff. That's stacking on top of work stuff. That's stacking on top of other anxieties. And when we get those stack effects, it's almost like a domino effect, and the last domino goes to the bar. Like, it's right there. It's like, there you go. Unless we have a support system, whether it's mentally in our mind, whether it's listening to these talks, whether it's me reaching out to Terry, or Terry reaching out to me, or you guys reaching out on here, or getting sponsors or people that can help you and understand what it's going through. Because the best thing that helps is knowing someone else is going through the same thing. I was watching a video on YouTube yesterday, and it was talking about how ever since like the 1980s, when they started the big craze of depression being solved by pharmacy stuff, which helps some people, and I think it is helpful, they actually tracked the depression levels, and they've gone up. So while we have all this new education and all this new treatment for depression, the depression levels are rising like crazy, and a lot of people can't pinpoint what it's because of. Now, I looked at something when I got sober, and I noticed that a lot of people that got help through groups and meetings, and different people talking about different stuff. And I started thinking about, well, maybe a lot of our society problems is the fact that we're so isolated.
Yeah.
The fact that we don't talk about things. The fact that, I don't know how it is for other people, but I know there was a certain stigma in my family on being a man. You don't show your feelings. You don't talk about them. You just go about your day and you deal with stuff the way you deal with it. And we don't talk about things. But I learned that, hey, you know what? Sometimes it's okay. Like, we're pack animals. That's what we do, right? Like your dog. Your dog comes up and your dog needs to be pet a certain amount of times a day. Like, if they don't, they're going to get all depressed and they're going to curl up in the corner and be sad. They have to have that. And humans are the same way. We have to have that kind of interaction. We have to understand what's going on with us and with other people. And, sometimes they will have something that will help you. Sometimes they'll have something that's going to, oh, wow, yeah, that makes sense to me. Or, yeah, I had one of those in my mouth too, and then now it's gone and I knew it was nothing. Or yeah, when I dealt with this loss, this is how I dealt with it. And understanding stuff like that, I think, is really important.
Yeah, talking to other people. When I found out my good friend passed away about 10 o'clock yesterday morning, and it was expected. I saw him on Sunday, and he kind of had that look, and it was sad, and that happened. And then I'm a secretary of a meeting at noon on Wednesdays, and so and I picked the topic, so I was like, what am I going to do? There's going to be a whole bunch of people at this meeting that love that guy, and so I made the topic gratitude. Because, I lost my dog and my dad earlier in the year, and that produced a lot of anxiety, both of them. And, the way I was able to work through it, people talk about acceptance, and, acceptance, that's a huge part of it, accepting the fact that these things happen. We're living creatures, and we're not going to live forever, But the step beyond that really helped me heal was the gratitude. And the gratitude of having this crazy happy dog in my life, and the gratitude of my dad, teaching me how to teaching me everything. He taught me how to canoe. He taught me how to ski when he didn't know how to ski. I mean, gratitude for things like that, being there for me my entire life, regardless of how bad I was and non-deserving of it. And so I made that the topic yesterday. And lots of people talked about their gratitude, and gratitude knowing him, and gratitude going through life. And the important thing that this helped for me was just, we were all talking about it. And after that meeting, I was feeling pretty good. I'm still sad, of course. It's terrible, but that really helped a lot, and I think it helped a lot of the people. There were lots of hugs afterwards. So, yeah. Being with other people, that helps immensely. Being able to talk about it. Finding it. Tina said that you lost your best friend a couple months ago, and that you have yet to talk about it. But you're journaling about it. That's another tool that a lot of people use. They'll journal about things. I don't personally journal, but I know lots and lots of people that'll write it down, and they'll go back and look at it, and that really helps them get a perspective on things in life. So that's another great tool to use. But as continuing on with your comment, you said anxiety of holding it in and losing my sobriety scares the poop out of me. Sure, yeah, holding it in is a difficult thing to do in sobriety. Well, it's easy to hold it in, but it's a bad thing to do in sobriety. You can definitely start to take your mind into a direction of trying to find some relief, and or at least my go-to might be taking that drink to get that relief, and that's something I can't afford.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think also for me it really helps to understand that what we're going through is not just us. Like, the world has a lot of people in it, and a lot of people come and go. A lot of people get issues, a lot of people don't get issues. Some people have bad issues, some people have light issues, and understanding that the world spins whether I worry or not, like it's going to keep going. And I think there's a good phrase by Alan Watts where he says, it's about accepting and embracing the uncertainty that life is. Once I understand that it's not all about me, like with Terry, a lot of people lost this person. A lot of people lose the people that we lose, but we tend to look at it as us. When, Terry really hit on the key, which is really having the gratitude of, hey, we all got this guy. Like, we got the knowledge and we got the stuff, and the things that person says and the things that person are invested in us. And when you understand this, that's something that's like, wow, this is a different way of looking at it, where it's like, okay, we're all part of this thing. We got this person, whether for a short time or a long time. We were able to experience that, and looking at the positive and looking at the good and understanding, this isn't something I need to drink over, because it never helps, right? If I go drink over my anxiety or my hypochondria or whatever, it's just going to make it worse, right? I remember what that was like, and that was hell. That was absolute hell that you can't describe to someone who's never been through it. I've tried describing what it's like to be an alcoholic to someone who hasn't gone through it, and they're like, no, I've had this, and I'm like, no, this is different. This is like crippling insanity. And it's obsession, absolutely, and a really, really difficult thing to deal with. And do I want that? Is that going to help? Yeah. Okay, when I have anxiety, instead of going and looking at whatever was in my mouth in the mirror at the movie theater, I could have gone and gotten a drink. Yeah, that would have chilled it out for like 9 minutes. And then after, it would have dropped my anxiety levels and made it way worse. It would have been a cycle. And a cycle I probably wouldn't have been able to get out of. Because once you're stuck in it, the only thing that helps is more drinking and more drinking and more drinking. And it seems like it's helping, but it's really not. And it really, really throws you for a loop. And when you're sober, you can have gratitude. When you're sober, you can look at this and you can understand, hey, the world's a big place. I'm not the only person. We look at it that way. Like when there's traffic, oh, I got to get here. What about these other people? Or when we get cut off on the freeway, I always like to think, okay, that guy cut me off. His wife's probably having a baby. That's why they're going so fast. It's not because he's a dick. It's because, they got to have a baby. And when you understand that, it starts to change the perspective. And I think the problem in our society, in our world, is it supports rugged individualism. It supports go on your own, pull up your bootstraps, you're the only person that needs to know about your problems. When in actuality, it's the opposite. Now, I know making people individualist sells a lot of stuff. Because if I tell you your problem can be solved by buying this new car or drinking this brand of liquor, then I make a lot of money. But in fact, I think it's doing a disservice to the human race. I think it's doing a disservice because the less we connect, the more this stuff gets heightened. And then what do? We go to the bar, and it seems like we have friends. Hey, I could talk about stuff at the bar. But in actuality, is that a healthy way to do it? Probably not. There's much other healthy ways.
Yeah. Many years ago, I can tell you a little story. Many years ago, I don't know, 20, 30 years ago? I don't know. I started to study the martial arts. And the school I went to was, I call it an old school style of school. And it was basically a Kenpo karate, if any of you know anything about it. And what our system concentrated on was being able to fight. And to fight, you have to fight. You can't just break boards and do things like that. So full contact kickboxing was part of our school. If you wanted to advance in belts, you had to do that. And then as you went further up the ranks, you started to have to do this thing that we had every Saturday morning called Special Squad. And that's where these guys that, had their black belts for whatever, years would come and fight us. And we'd have to talk about anxiety, starting on Sunday for the next Saturday because you just got your ass kicked and it's possible you could be knocked out the next week. There was huge anxiety. And, I had to learn how to deal with that stuff. It was tough because, these guys were scary. They're bigger than me, way more talented than me. I'm not a natural fighter. These guys seem to be, or they were very well trained, whatever. And they could knock me out with a punch, And so what did I do? I prepared for it. And how did I prepare? I did that bag work. I practiced. I did everything I could. I started, this is before MMA was on TV, so I became a boxing junkie and would watch Tuesday night fights and learn how to box. And because this was basically boxing with kicks allowed as well. And so that's what I did. I prepared as much as I possibly could. And, that's what I do in sobriety as well, is I try to be prepared for these situations. And sometimes, some of the most dangerous places for trying to stay away from a drink are the ones we don't see coming. Like, I don't know, you're going to some sort of an event and all of a sudden you see an old friend and you used to drink with them and they're just, they're shoving the drink in your face and all of a sudden you find yourself grabbing at it, things like that. And, what I've done in sobriety is I have a sobriety program that I work on. And I work on it consistently. I don't have to work on it hard. I work on it consistently. And that keeps me prepared so that when those situations arise, either I have something that I already do all the time to not take that drink, or I can at least respond in a better way, like just step away. That might be one of the tools that I'll use. Just, hey man, that's cool. I see somebody I recognize over there. I'll be right back. Get away from that person just for a few minutes, and then be able to come back when they're not trying to shove a drink in my face. So preparation is a real good way to also help with that anxiety. And we have a program here that can help you with that. And that's our Talk Sober Sobriety program. And
Yeah, and if you want to check out that program, it really goes through some of the things that we've struggled with over the last 7 years of sobriety where, there were things that didn't come up that we didn't know. Like, I didn't know I was going to deal with this. Now I'm putting it in there. Hey, this is what I did. And if you want to learn more about that, you can go to talksober.com, right like this. Click on the big yellow button. It'll take you to the sign-up page. You can sign up here. You'll get all kinds of MP3s, videos, tools, printouts, all kinds of stuff to help you get and stay sober and help you understand exactly what goes on in the mind. Now, it's important to understand that Terry and I are not doctors or trained professionals, but this is what went on in our mind, what helped us, and what helps us today continually. Like, there are things in this program that I have used over the last 5 weeks to keep my sanity and not drink. Like, had I not had these, had I not gone through it, I'd probably be drinking. These are the tools that I set up and Terry set up so that, we can have that peace of mind, so we can understand, hey, you know what? I got to go to. I got something I know I can do. I got something I know I can say to myself. And I remember in rehab, my counselor had told me, he said, Mark, you only need a few good ideas to beat this. And that's true. There's a couple of things that you might find in that program, you might find us talking about here, you might hear from somewhere else, a meeting, whatever, and those are the things you're going to cling to that are going to help you make it. Now, will they be the things you use in 10 or 15 years? I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. You might get new things down the line. But I think those are going to help you and help you understand what a sober life is like. Understanding that, all these things that we've dealt with, we don't need to drink over. Even though 7 years ago, if you would have asked me, I would have been like, yeah, that's going to take a couple of 40s and a fifth of booze to get through. But understanding the difference is really what helps.
Yeah, we really go into trying to change your mind perspective. I mean, our goal is to help you guys stay sober from alcohol, and the program that we're just trying to help you quit and try to figure out a way of life that's gonna work for you, a sober way of life. and not just being sober, but enjoying life. That's what I have right now. Is I enjoy life, and I enjoy being sober, and I enjoy my sober life. And we I believe, and Marcus does too, that anybody can quit drinking. It doesn't matter how much you drank, how often you drank, how many times you quit. None of that stuff matters. You can get and stay sober. I've seen it with people that looked completely hopeless. It works. You can get sober. And I'll go into what the program's like just a little bit. Because maybe you guys want to know, but it's basically the program is based on Marcus's letters to an alcoholic. And each letter is associated with a topic, and that's important to sobriety. And when you go through the letters, you're going to see similarities in your story and your experience that you're totally going to relate to this stuff, because we're talking about real life situations here. And with each day, it's a 30-day program. There's a letter, and there's a couple of videos and some exercises and some PDFs that go with each letter to help you learn how to deal with your alcohol problem. And after each day, there's a section that you can go over, and it'll help you kind of get a game plan so that you don't drink until the next day. That's a lot of our problems is, I'm just going to have one drink at that time. Maybe this can help you. But you do one section a day, or you can go slower, you can go faster. It's really up to you. You're the one that's responsible for your sobriety. But, it really is a simple program. It doesn't require a ton of time on your part, but, it does require work and consistent work. You do have to do it, just like any sobriety program is going to tell you. It requires work, and you have to be dedicated. But our program will help you. It's going to help you develop that mindset for sobriety. And it's like I said, I love it, and I've developed the tools to deal with life, and it makes things so much easier now. Is life perfect? Absolutely not. But what you guys can do is you can after our YouTube today, you can go to talksober.com. And if you want to join the program, you can click on what is it? It's online. Join our online recovery classes, where you click, and you can fill in. It's a secure membership sign-up form. And but if you want to just check it out. There's another one that's you click on download Marcus's letters. That'll kind of give you an idea on what the letters are like. And if you're wondering about rehab, we have a button on there. You can click, should I go to rehab? And there's some great information on there, including a pretty detailed am I an alcoholic quiz, and you can just kind of run that. It's not cut and dry in the law of whether you're an alcoholic or not, but it might help give you an idea, and you could even get, if you want some in-depth work, you can join Marcus and I on a one-on-one phone call, and there's a button there that you can click on that. So anyways, go check it out. Check out talksober.com after this, or if you have a second screen or something, check it out right now while you're listening to us.
Awesome. Tina says, does it matter that I wasn't an alcoholic but struggle with opioid addiction? I don't think so. I think the mental aspect is pretty similar from what I've learned. I've talked to a lot of people that struggled with that as well. Obviously, if you're trying to quit anything, you should always go to the doctor, make sure everything's going okay. Detox can be dangerous no matter what you're detoxing from. But as far as the mental stuff, yes, I think it'll help. And personally for me, I actually relate more to the NA literature than I do the AA when I decide to listen to that. So I think there is a good crossover, and I think you'll get a lot out of that as well.
Yeah, I think the obsessions and the compulsions are very similar for any type of chemical addiction. The withdrawals and the detoxes are definitely, they definitely have some differences, but they're both, as far as what I've seen, they're both equally painful.
Absolutely. And also at talksober.com, when you do join using the big yellow button, this supports what we're doing here. So this keeps us going, keeps all our lights on and everything like that. And if you like what we're doing, that does help us out, and we really appreciate that. All right. Any comments? Ben says, a big reason I drank was simply to pass the time. I used to hate reading, but now I just read a book instead of drinking. Reading also makes me sleepy, so it's a win-win. Absolutely. I think that's a good thing. And, boredom is a big thing. Avoidance is a big thing. And when we look at that, we need to understand what our mind is doing. Tina says, sober for 2 years this Sunday, just trying to stay sober that way. Absolutely, and I think the course will definitely help you, whether you've been sober for 9 minutes, whether you're trying to get sober, or whether you've been sober a while. I think you're going to find insights into that, and I think some of the things that I've dealt with throughout my life are a little extreme, and I think that'll help put things in perspective for a lot of people as well. And Terry's always like the voice of reason and wisdom, so you always got that in there too, where it's like, what Marcus meant to say in all that craziness was this. So I think it'll help you a little bit too.
Yeah, but I love your analogies. You have some pretty great analogies.
Thank you.
Let's see. It looks like the conversation was about avoidance a little bit. Tommy was saying, hey Ben, yes, but it's hard to decide which stressor to meet and which to leave. But avoidance and suppression, not healthy. And the stressors for me and anxiety are, like I said earlier, are about fear. There's lots of ways to look at fear. And, when I was drinking and when I didn't know how to deal with it, it was the old F everything and run, FEAR. And that was it, or F everything and react. And nowadays it's face everything and respond. And that's what I try to do now, is not so much avoid things. Of course I'm going to avoid situations. I'm not going to go to a kegger party like the ones I used to go to in high school. I'm just not going to do that. So yes, there is going to be some avoidance. But many of the things that we fear and have anxiety over, we kind of have to face them. And the easiest thing that I've found is generally to face them when they come, rather than pushing them down the road, because it usually comes back even stronger, and then that anxiety just sticks around and drives me crazy anyways. So why not just deal with it? So that's just kind of the way I look at it in most situations. I'm sure there's stuff where I have to look at it a little differently. So yeah, Faith,
Absolutely.
6 years, awesome. And those of you, Tina, 2 years, and there's some more up here, but congratulations on all your sobriety. And for those of you that are still struggling, you can do it.
Yep. Paige says, my guy went 84 days sober, then relapsed. Now he thinks he's cured and can drink. Well, I can't do that, so maybe he found some way to do it, but so far I haven't found a way to do it, and most alcoholics have not found a way to successfully drink afterwards. So, I mean, it's to each his own. It's the kind of thing where you need to decide what works for you or what doesn't work for you. And, of course, the main thing would be your safety. How can you be safe? How can you deal with your stuff? Whether that person is in denial about being an alcoholic or whatever is going on, we need to face, what am I going to do? Right? The only thing we can control is what we do. Can't control what he does. Can't do it. But you can control what you do. And oftentimes that'll have a chain reaction and, change things in your life. Sometimes it won't. Sometimes it'll just change it for you. But the fact of the matter is we need to understand this is what I'm going to do. This guy's drinking. I don't like it. Here's where it's going. What am I going to do? And then, you respond differently.
Right. Yeah, not it's a tough one, having a loved one that's gone back or is in active addiction. It's such a difficult thing for the partner, and it's hard not to help them with their it's hard not to help them with their addiction, but at the same time help them get over their addiction, if you know what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. So yeah, but the thing that I would, I don't know, maybe just making sure you're not helping them by buying them liquor or anything like that, and not letting them drive. But the most important thing for me is communication. communicating what my intentions are, and for my loved one to communicate with me, I need to make sure she's letting me know how she's feeling and what's going on as far as me, so that I'm not doing, going in the wrong direction. I don't know if any of that made sense.
Yes, it did.
It's a difficult thing.
All right. Any comments we missed? Paige says, no, he's terrible. I hate right now. Yeah, figure out what you're going to do. That's going to be the key. Because you need to take care of yourself. And, it's sad, but sometimes that has to happen. Like, had I continued drinking, should my family have gone down with the ship? No. No, they should go take care of themselves. And if I have an issue, I got to get help for it if that's possible. Sometimes it's not possible. Some people just don't want the help. But you can't force anyone to do anything. Now, you can give little hints, like you can help people. Like, one of the things I learned was understanding that a lot of alcoholics don't realize that they're alcoholics and addicts because they haven't found a better option. They don't realize it. They think that's the only option, and it is the best option, but they haven't really thought about it. And when you talk to them about, hey, I understand the bad, I also understand the good, and I also understand there are other options, that's what really helps. Because what they're doing is they're trying to avoid feelings and thoughts. That's what alcoholism is about. And it also has a chemical dependency component, where now they feel like they need it to live. And when we're in the grips of that, we don't understand there's a way out. You came to me when I was drinking and you're like, hey, I have a solution. I was like, yeah, bullshit. I've tried everything. You don't know what you're talking about. There's no solution. This is what I found. This works. Oh, no, but this helped me. No, you don't understand my situation, right? And I was blind to be able to see that there is another way. I was blind to be able to see that I could have a life without drinking. And once that was presented to me and I understood, hey, all the things you're dealing with are mostly chemical, and once that's gone, you can start to repair. I didn't understand that that was an option.
Earlier on, YouTube Premium said one of the biggest motivations I had to quit drinking was remembering what my life was like and how much better it was before spiraling down into drinking too much. And yeah, that's a big motivation for me as well, remembering back. But when I was in my active alcoholism, I tended not to look at how bad my life was right now until it became so obvious there was no way I could avoid it, looking at it. My little alcoholism forgetter in my mind made me forget the bad times, and it allowed me to remember the good times. Those times going up to the wine country with all my friends and having a great old time, and the parties that were so fun, and having that nice cold cocktail on the beach in Hawaii and things like that. That's the type of things that I would remember, and I'd forget the damage I'd done and the things that all those consequences that would happen. It was hard. Once I got sober, I was able to start to look at them, but I still kind of had that forgetter. But, talking to other sober alcoholics, and they started to tell their little stories, that started to jog my memory a little bit. And as my mind cleared up, I could start to look at those situations and realize, dang, it wasn't that great, especially at the end, those last few years. It was terrible. In fact, those good times were becoming further and further apart, and those bad times were getting closer and closer together. And that's what it really took. Working with other people, just talking to people and having them help jog my memory was really helpful.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
All right. Any other comments stand out?
I scrolled really fast, so I have to read something.
Tommy says, the world keeps spinning regardless of us and our worries. Great point. Number 2, doing little things to help in a little way. Excellent. Michelle says, be careful with too much anxiety. It can turn into depression. Yeah, that's true. And it's always good to see a doctor if you're worried about stuff like that. Depression can be debilitating, and I think a lot of depression can be helped with talking to other people, and also changing your perspective and your life philosophy on what you believe about the world, what you believe about life. Obviously, people who sit in front of the news all day have a pretty bleak outlook on life because news only shows the bad stuff. If my window was pointed at a place where there was a bunch of fights, I'd probably think, bad things about the world. Does that mean the world's bad? No, that means my window is in the wrong spot. And oftentimes our windows are in the wrong spot. The mind is like a lens, and what you focus on is what you get. And if we focus on the wrong thing, we're going to get a bad outcome. But if we focus on the right thing and we put new thoughts in our head, that's what's going to help. Because so many of us try to solve bad thinking problems with the same thoughts that cause the thinking problems, and it can't be done. You need something new. You need something outside. You need a shock to the system that says, hey, wait a minute, there's something else out there. Like with alcoholism, someone needs to come along and say, hey, there is a better way. I know I've done it, and this is how it needs to work. And you need to understand a lot of what we deal with is chemical, right? Like, our society is bent on eating garbage food, and we wonder why we feel bad all the time. Well, if you have 5 pizzas a day and a hamburger the next day, yeah, chemically you're going to be altered. You're going to be tired. You're going to have issues. And when we understand this, it starts to work. Like, anxiety is at an all-time high, and so is the sales of coffee. Coincidence? I don't know. I know if I have 10 pots of coffee, I get pretty anxious. If I have 1 pot, I get pretty anxious. And we got to understand exactly how this stuff works and what affects us, and be sensitive to, hey, it's not all just the mind stuff. It's also things that are affecting the working of the mind. There's things we talk about all the time on this channel, which is the content of your mind, right? The content of my mind dealing with hypochondria is what's going on in my mouth. What's going on? All right? That's the content. The working of the mind is the hypochondria. I would bet you that if my dad had a foot condition, I'd be worrying about my foot. And so what would happen, right? Just like the medical people that go to medical school and get hypochondria, it's about what they're learning about. Coincidence? No. It's because it's what you're putting in the mind. Now, I would say that most of those people that go to med school that have that hypochondria condition were pre-exposed to that type of worry. It's like Alan Watts says, you can worry about anything if you're the worrying type. Give it whatever you're going to give it, it's going to worry. Doesn't matter, financial, relationships, whatever it is, you're going to worry about something, right? And now that we have like unlimited TV from the entire universe at the click of a button, there's plenty of things to turn on to worry about, from, zombies coming down to the catastrophes to whatever it is. And we're putting all this stuff in our mind, and we're wondering why we're screwed up. And it's like, I think there's a correlation here. And again, we're only going to find that out by talking to each other and understanding. Like that Pink Floyd says, all we need to do is make sure we keep talking and keep understanding and keep relating and keep listening. And I think that's the key to getting through everything together.
Yeah. And you are going to get what you focus on. I learned a lesson some years ago, mountain biking. You guys probably know, or many of you know, that I cycle a lot, and most of my riding is road biking. But mountain biking, and here where I live, some of the mountain biking is pretty extremely difficult, like steep hills and tough trails and technical stuff. I learned, because I kept on getting stuck, like when you're going up a super steep hill, there's like a rut, and then you always go in the rut. I'd always go in the rut, fall over, cut my elbow and knee and all that. I was riding with this one guy who was able to handle this stuff. It's like, what do you do? He says, you don't look where you don't want to go. You look where you want to go. That's what you do. It's that simple. And that's what it was for me. I started doing that, and all of a sudden I wasn't crashing anymore. You get what you focus on. And for mountain biking, it was that. Focus on the smooth part, not the rut. And I try to do that in sobriety too. Focus on the good things. Focus on gratitude. Trying to be honest. trying to be willing to do what it takes to get sober, trying to be open-minded, not closing off those things that I don't agree with, just let them be. Focus on my sobriety and what's working for me.
Absolutely. Ben says something interesting. He says, news is so sensational. I was recently reading newspapers from the early 1900s, and the news channel was exactly how it is now. Actually made it easier for me to step away from the news channels. Exactly, and it's like, if you guys have ever seen the movie Men in Black, the guy comes up, and he's the new guy, right? And he's freaking out. He's like, hey, man, we got to deal with this stuff. There's an intergalactic spaceship that's ready to take out Earth right now. And he's like, hey, there's always something out there ready to take out Earth. And the only reason people get along with their lives is they don't know about it. And it's kind of like that in sobriety. You realize that there's always something you can catastrophize. There's always the end of the world. It's like the end of the world. They've been preaching about the end of the world since the beginning of the world. And it's always like this year. It's always this, it's this year. This is the 1 year. This is the one it's going to happen. And we need to realize that everyone's always freaked out about something. But does it add something to our life? There's actually a good Bible verse about that says, does 1 ounce of worry add 1 inch to your stature? Right? If I worry, am I going to, is everything going to be solved? No, I've never solved anything by worrying about it. I've solved it by action, but never by worry. I worried about being an alcoholic for years. Never solved it. What helped it was going and saying, what am I going to do now? Right? And that's what we need to do, is understand exactly what's going on and understand, hey, there's always some big catastrophe going on. Now, there's certain things you need to watch out for, of course. If the news said there was a tidal wave, I'm going to get my ass off the beach. That's what I'm going to do, right? They say there's a hurricane, I'm going to, prepare. But again, one of the things you learn living here in Florida is every hurricane is going to suck Florida off the map. You watch the news here and they're like, Florida is going to be taken off the map. It's just going to be a vacant spot. It's going to get sucked up. This is the biggest hurricane we've ever seen. It's going faster than anything we've ever... And then, you get there and it's like a windy day. Sometimes there's some bad stuff, but it's never as bad as they make it out to be. Now, is that to say I'm not going to prepare? Of course not. I'm going to prepare. But I'm not going to run around like a chicken with his head cut off like I did the first year I moved here. Learn my lesson there.
Yeah. Same thing here, except for wildfires. I'm prepared. That's all I can do. If I need to get out, I will.
Absolutely. The bad one is earthquake. You can't really know when those are coming. There ain't no warning.
You can prepare.
Yep.
My foundation of my house is bolted. How much preparation can I do? Not a ton.
Yep.
I did get rid of the fish tank. I don't want that dumping over.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting too, because when you look at certain stressors, like Terry and I both grew up in California. We know earthquakes. We've been through earthquakes. They don't bother us. My mom, on the other hand, she was in the Alaska, the big earthquake back in the 60s. And we used to have a joke when we were kids. You're like, you could just tap her bed and she'll fly up and she'll be completely dressed and out the door in 30 seconds flat. Because they just terrify her, because she's got, things in her mind and in her body that remind her of what that was like and how terrifying it was. And, it's interesting how that stuff lingers and how it affects us, how one person can be fine in an earthquake and they're like, whatever, I'm not in a high rise, so I'm okay. And another person can completely freak out about that. And that's what trauma does. And a lot of us that deal with alcoholism deal with trauma as well. And it's like a stack method, like we talked about earlier. So, yeah.
All right, everybody.
I think we're good for today. We're here every week, Thursday, 11 a.m. Eastern Time, 8 a.m. California time. And yeah, good stuff. Go over to talksober.com, click that yellow button, sign up here, get all our tools, get rocking and rolling, and let's make it happen, guys. Stay sober, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you, everybody. Good to see you all.